My neighbor Margaret, she's been gardening since 1974, longer than most people on this channel have been alive, called me last spring, sounding genuinely devastated. Her tomatoes were yellowing from the bottom up. Her basil had that wet, limp look that means the roots are already gone. She'd been using rice water every week for 2 months. The same rice water trick she'd seen everywhere online. The same one that gets 800,000 views and a thumbnail of someone holding a lush green tomato like it's a trophy. Her garden looked like it was dying from the inside out. The problem wasn't that rice water doesn't work. It does. The science behind it is real. The problem is that almost every guide teaching people how to use it is teaching them how to use it wrong, and not slightly wrong. Wrong in ways that compound over time, where you don't see the damage until the damage is already done. There are 6 specific mistakes I want to walk through today. Some of them you've probably read about, but I'd wager at least 2 of them, maybe 3, are things you've never heard anyone mention. They certainly weren't in any of the guides Margaret had been reading. The first mistake is the one that gets the most people, and it's a storage problem. Rice water, the milky liquid left over after you wash dry rice, is genuinely useful to plants. A 2016 study out of the University of the Philippines found that fermented rice water improved root development and plant height in vegetable seedlings compared to plain water controls. The active compounds aren't mysterious. You're dealing with B vitamins, trace amounts of starch, and in fermented versions, lactic acid bacteria that help break down organic matter in soil. Here's what nobody tells you. Unfermented rice water, stored at room temperature, begins growing bacteria and mold within 24 to 48 hours. Not helpful bacteria, the kind that can introduce harmful pathogens directly into your soil at root level. Most people rinse their rice, set the water on the counter, and use it 3 or 4 days later when they remember it's there. By then, you're essentially watering your plants with a diluted bacterial soup. If you're storing it, and storing it is fine, even smart, it has to go in the refrigerator within 2 hours of collection. It keeps about a week cold, or you ferment it intentionally, which we'll come back to when we talk about the third mistake. But leaving it on the counter for days and then pouring it on a plant you've spent months growing is one of the quieter ways people destroy things they love in their gardens. The second mistake is about concentration, and this one surprises people because the instinct behind it is completely understandable. Rice water fresh off the rinse is cloudy, slightly white. Some people, and I genuinely get why, think that the cloudier and more concentrated the water is, the more good stuff it delivers to the plant. So they cook rice in as little water as possible to get a thick, starchy liquid. Or they let the rinse water reduce. More nutrients, right? This is backwards. High concentrations of starch applied directly to soil create a film around the roots. This film, and I want to be specific here because it's not a vague metaphor, physically interferes with the soil's ability to absorb oxygen. Roots don't just take in water, they breathe. They need gas exchange at the root zone to function. Thick starch layers, applied repeatedly, start to compact the surface and cut off that exchange. What you end up looking at looks exactly like overwatering. Yellowing, limpness, root rot. The useful concentration is diluted. 1 part rice wash water to 4 or 5 parts plain water, not the thick stuff from the pot, the light wash from raw, uncooked rice. That's where the vitamin and mineral content is useful without the starch concentration causing problems. The third mistake is the one I find most interesting from a pure soil science perspective. Fermented rice water is more effective than fresh rice water for most garden applications. This part is widely known now. What's not widely discussed is that the fermentation window actually matters, specifically that under-fermented and over-fermented rice water do different things to your soil's pH. Proper fermentation takes about 5 to 7 days at room temperature. You'll see small bubbles. It develops a slightly sour smell. Nothing unpleasant, just organic. At that point, you have an active population of lactic acid bacteria that genuinely benefit most plants. Under 3 days, you have partial fermentation. The pH is dropping, but the beneficial bacterial populations haven't fully developed. Over 10 days, in warm weather especially, you often cross into a pH range acidic enough to stress plants that prefer neutral soil, which includes most vegetables. Tomatoes handle a wider range, but peppers, beans, and brassicas start showing stress when soil pH drops consistently below 5.5. The University of Georgia Cooperative Extension has been publishing soil pH guidance for decades. and that threshold keeps coming up in their vegetable gardening bulletins. The 5 to 7 day window isn't arbitrary. It's the sweet spot where pH and bacterial population are both working for you rather than against you. The fourth mistake is about timing, and it's particularly relevant to anyone who gardens in a warmer climate or who waters on a regular schedule. Rice water applied to soil in full midday sun on a hot day can contribute to fungal issues. Specifically, it raises surface moisture and provides an organic substrate that fungal spores are very good at using. Most experienced gardeners already water in the morning or evening for this reason. But rice water is somehow exempted in most guides, treated as if it follows different rules because it's natural. It doesn't. Apply it the same way you'd apply any organic liquid amendment, early morning, ideally, so the surface can dry out during the day and the roots have time to absorb moisture before evening sets in. Evening application is acceptable, but not ideal if you're in a region with high ambient humidity or if you've had any powdery mildew issues in the past. This one's simple. It just gets ignored. The fifth mistake is the part that Margaret had been doing wrong, and it's the one that explains what happened to her tomatoes. Frequency. She was applying rice water every 7 days, replacing one of her regular waterings, every single week, for 2 months. She'd read that rice water was beneficial, and she concluded that more of something beneficial meant more benefit. This is a reasonable thing to think. It's also wrong. Rice water introduces nitrogen and phosphorus into soil in modest amounts. Not dramatic amounts, this isn't a fertilizer. But applied weekly to an already amended soil, the phosphorus accumulates faster than plants can use it. Excess phosphorus in soil doesn't just sit there inert. It binds to calcium and zinc, locking those nutrients out of the plant's reach. That characteristic yellowing starting from the lower leaves, the look Margaret described, that's a classic presentation of zinc deficiency in tomatoes. The cause wasn't lack of zinc. She had plenty of zinc in her soil. The cause was too much phosphorus blocking its uptake. The appropriate frequency for most established plants is bi-weekly during the growing season, not weekly, not twice weekly, which some guides inexplicably recommend. Once every 2 weeks gives soil time to process the amendment and keeps nutrient ratios from shifting into ranges that work against you. Young seedlings in their first 2 to 3 weeks after germination don't need rice water at all. Their nutritional needs are different, and their root systems can't handle the bacterial load that even well-fermented rice water introduces. The sixth mistake is the one that sounds the most counterintuitive, which is probably why it's the least discussed. Plant type matters. Most online guides present rice water as a universal beneficial treatment. Use it on everything, your vegetables, your houseplants, your shrubs. It's sold as this all-purpose garden supplement, but rice water creates a mildly acidic environment over time, and it introduces a bacterial profile that favors heavy feeders, plants that evolved in lean, well-drained, slightly alkaline conditions. Lavender, rosemary, sage, most Mediterranean herbs don't benefit from rice water. They tolerate it poorly. The soil chemistry shifts away from what they need and toward what they don't. If you're growing a kitchen herb garden that includes Mediterranean herbs alongside basil and parsley, you shouldn't be applying the same amendment to everything. Basil, tomatoes, peppers, leafy greens. These are the plants rice water was effectively studied on and the plants that respond well to it. Lavender, rosemary, thyme, oregano. Skip it entirely. This isn't an exotic piece of horticultural knowledge. It's just that nobody writing the fast guides ever stops to make the distinction. Margaret's garden came back. She went back to plain water for 6 weeks to let the phosphorus imbalance correct itself, did a single late-season compost application, and by July, her tomatoes were producing again. Not miraculously, she lost the early fruit, and that's a real loss in a short growing season. But the plants recovered. The rice water trick works. The people selling it, as the secret your local nursery doesn't want you to know, are overselling it. But the underlying biology is real, and the benefit is genuine when it's applied correctly. The industry didn't hide this from you. They just never slowed down enough to tell you what not to do. And those two things turn out to matter about equally.